Rory's one of the best to ever play. And being able to fight against a great like that is pretty special. For him to miss that putt, I'd never wished it on anybody. It just happened to play out that way, and he'll win multiple more major championships. There's no doubt, and I think that fire in him is going to continue to grow. And I have nothing but respect for how he plays the game of golf, because to be honest, when he was climbing up the leaderboard and he was 2 ahead, I was like, uh-oh. But luckily, things went my way today.
Gracious position by Bryson DeChambeau talking about Rory McIlroy, who he beat by 1 stroke at the 124th U.S. Open at Pinehurst, course number 2. The putt that he was referring to, the context, was the putt at 18. But if you went to 15, if you went, say, even the putt at 16, right? As Justin Ray told us, 496 for 496 from 3 feet. It seemed as though troubles with the putter, that was at 18, at the worst possible times was a demon that had no longer possession of Rory McIlroy, but it reared its head at the worst possible times at this U.S. Open. Rory ended up bogeying 3 of his final 4 holes. He had a scramble for the par that he made at 17. That's what sealed his fate, to ensure that he lost by 1. But to Bryson's comment that, and there you can see the card that illustrates the same, he just leaked oil coming in. Now, was that because he hasn't won in 10 years and the weight of that was upon his shoulders? In other words, was this a choke? The numbers would indicate the same. There are many that will be quick to his defense. That the golf media establishment will take that role. There's a little doubt in my mind to say, no, this wasn't. They don't use that, but the C word. This was about, the game of golf, and these things happen in the game of golf. You still saw 3 bogeys in the final 4 holes. This video you're watching right now, Jay Busby is the source of it. This was Rory leaving. It didn't address the media. He got a lot of criticism online for that. This part of it, I kind of have this feeling that he was so disappointed he just couldn't do it. But I did see comments from people that I thought had merit too. They were like, this was a huge opportunity where you had this sharp contrast between Bryson becoming the golfer of the people, right? Where Rory McIlroy, who is so popular and has such crazy wild support from the people, there he is as he was waiting to see how his fate played out, a fate that he no longer had possession of in his own hands. And you can see how dejected he looks in that photo. And then, of course, this is from Jason Sobel with photos from, I presume, his mobile phone with pictures of Rory leaving. But the comment I was talking about where someone was saying, this was an opportunity for Rory McIlroy to also show a bridge and to be there to shake Bryson's hand and say, well done, maybe I'll get you next time. But instead, he was just overcome by the moment. Now, I expect that we're going to hear from Rory soon enough. And I fully anticipate, because of who Rory actually is, that he's going to say, look, I'm sorry. I just couldn't speak at that time. I was too overcome by the emotions. Rory is pretty honest about those things. So, Dom, I'm curious about what you're hearing from the people. I know you've got the question out there to say, is this just another stumble? Or is this a sign of something deeper, like maybe the end of a run for Rory McIlroy? What are you hearing from the people in terms of your survey and comments?
Question of the day, officially, rereading it. Can Rory McIlroy overcome another heartbreaking loss, or is this the end? Obviously, that's a bit dramatic the way that's phrased, but you know what I mean. Is it too much? Is it all too much? Is this just something he can't overcome with the pressure you're referring to? 3 options. First one is he's done. It is too much. The next one is he's fine. He'll be fine. It's just golf. And then I gave a third option of just don't care. Maybe people just don't care. I don't care about this question. I don't care about Rory. Who cares? Right now, 49%. I got to be honest with you, Matt. This surprised me a little bit. 49% say he'll be fine. He's going to be fine. It's no big deal. And only 25% are saying he's done. It's too much pressure. He's done. It's over. So I think that's interesting. I anticipated more people. I don't know what you thought, but I anticipated more people would be thinking that it's too much for him and that he'd be done. But that's not the case. I mean, if you look at his major championships, I know we don't have a graphic for this, but I mean, I'm looking at his major championships since 2015, since his last victory when he won the Open in 2014. He won the PGA in 2014. If you look at every subsequent year, he has had a top 10 finish or multiple top 10 finishes in major championships every single year since that time.
Yeah.
I mean, in most cases, multiple. 2015, a 4th and a 9th. 2016, a 10th and a 5th. 17, 7th and a 4th. 18, a 5th and a 2nd. 19, an 8th and a 9th. 20, a 5th and I mean, this is, in 2022, a 2nd and 8th, a 5th and a 3rd. A runner-up in 23 at the U.S. Open. Again, of course, a runner-up yesterday. I mean, you keep knocking on the door, eventually, even if the pressure is crushing, even if it might be too much, if you keep doing that, Matt, aren't you just going to fall backwards into winning? It's just going to happen by chance, is it not?
Yeah, first, there's a lot of things to answer here. First of all, to your results, once again, the greatest audience in the world, I think the people nailed it. And I agree with them with the perspective that they have on Rory McIlroy, where the vast majority are saying, no, he's going to get by this. There's no doubt in my mind that this one is very, very painful, even by evidence, but with the actions that we saw from Rory himself. There is no doubt in my mind that this will also leave scar tissue. And there's also no doubt in my mind that what we saw, the nervy finish, was not simply because he hasn't won in 10 years a major championship. I also do think it's the accumulation of the years and the wear and tear, if you please, that goes along with that in those close calls. To the point that you're talking about with what Rory has accomplished, though, this from the stats that we get following tournaments. Rory McIlroy records his 11th runner-up finish on the PGA Tour and 4th in a major championship, including back-to-back U.S. Opens. He becomes the 4th player since 1920 with 6 consecutive top 10 finishes at the U.S. Open, joining Ben Hogan with 12 from 1940 to 1956, Bobby Jones with 7 from 1920 to 1926, and Jack Nicklaus with 6 from 1977 to 1982. So as to what this means, I think, for Rory McIlroy moving forward, a couple of things. Obviously, the pressure of closing at a major had an impact on Rory McIlroy. And again, I know that there's going to be people that have the discussion that shrug their shoulders and go, this is just golf. This happens in golf. This to me was more than just golf. This is about a player, a world-class player, a player that at many times has been described as the best player in the world in time and context, right? That could not hold it together in those finishing holes, that bogeyed 3 of his 4 finishing holes. And as I mentioned earlier in the program, concerningly, there were a few demons that snuck back into his game, namely the putter. That looked like it had been something that had been resolved. We keep putting up the X that was posted by Justin Ray, 496 of 496 from 3 feet. But when the 3 feet meant the absolute most during that time span, he was unable to convert. It wasn't exactly 3 feet through a few of those putts, but I'm using it in a broader brush to explain. That was a problem. So what that leads me to is Royal Troon. We have one more major left in 2024. And if right now, if the question had been, question of the day, if you please, Dom, if the question of the day today had been, do you think Rory can win at Royal Troon? My answer emphatically is yes. However, I don't think Rory out in front, unless he has a considerable lead, would be the Rory that will be the Rory that will win at Royal Troon. I actually think that if Rory is trailing by 1 or 2, if he is the pursuer instead of the pursued in that instance, I think there's a much better chance of Rory closing. But Rory was hitting the ball so well all week, even right from the opening round where he was burning multiple edges. He easily could have been 8 under in that opening round. The putts just weren't dropping at that time. So for Rory McIlroy at Royal Troon, do I think that this destroyed him in terms of his major championship pursuit? No. Do I think it will fuel him? Yes. Do I think that there are some parts of the ship that are taking on water that need to be shored up? Yeah, in as much as they can be, given, again, circumstance, if it repeats itself. That's why I think if he's coming slightly from behind, his chances are far better. As to what we're hearing from the people, though, Dom, I know you're getting responses in, so let's hear it.
Yeah, obviously there's a ton coming in about Rory on both sides of it. That putt on, Paul writes, that putt on 18 reminded me of Doug Sanders at St. Andrews. Surfsass says, if Rory didn't have the yips under pressure, he'd have 10 majors, another 10 majors. Rough effort for Rory, they say. NBT3 writes, I felt bad for him. Greg says, Rory had a perfect opportunity to endear himself with the fans, but he's just not mature enough to get past it.
Well, he wasn't maybe in the moment.
Writes,
I would agree with that, yeah.
Chase writes, he's gracious 99% out of 100 times. I got to give him a break on this one. I'm sure he's referring
that's
to
kind of how I'm feeling.
Getting
That's
in
what I'm
his car
saying.
and
Yeah.
driving away. The golf press should ignore him, they're writing. Rory needs to learn that there's more to life than golf. I think that's what he's learned pretty brutally over the last two years.
Well, you know what? I don't know what
I don't know more going on off the course than on.
But at the time when he was running through his height of his prowess, would you have said the same thing about Tiger Woods? Or was it because golf is their life that they perform the way that they do? Right? So I don't know if that assessment is not one that I necessarily agree with. That this, you got to learn that life is about more than golf. Well, for these guys, their life is golf. If that balance helps them perform better, more power to them. That's great. But I don't think we can broad brush and hit him with that tag. I don't think that's fair.
Oh, so to that point, let's not forget Rory's been addressing major issues in his life off the links, plus everything that's been going on with PIF and the meetings and the board over the last couple of years. Let's see here. Everyone's going to forget about this in 2 days. Just all of it, everything. 24-hour news cycle. U.S. Open never happened. We'll just move on.
That's also not true. These events reverberate, echo through time. Look at how often we were reliving what happened in 1999 with Payne Stewart.
Derek writes, total choke job. Full stop. Sean writes, this is not a one-off. He put the ball in the wrong place above the hole. Had his approach been better, the putt would have been easier. I do think, again, for what it's worth, again, we saw Bryson miss a short one on 15. I heard a player in a practice round, because I obviously I was there. When I was on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday and I was there, one of the players referred to the greens as, quote, like putting on marble. I mean, that's going to make it difficult. So I do think the course has something to do with this in terms of the difficulty.
I don't think that.
There's a lot more.
What we're talking about.
There's a lot more coming in here, but I want to end on this one, which I think is the correct one to end on. Without Rory, there's no epic battle on Major Championship Sunday, and I agree with that. And the pressure and the excitement and the nervousness that we've been discussing this entire program, it only works because they were in the crucible together, and it was a tandem effort down the stretch of those last 4 or 5
I agree with that, but the truth of the matter is that in this time, Rory was consumed by the moment, and Bryson defined it. It's that simple. That's what took place.